The Pittsburgh Steelers are at a crossroads right now, just like the Kansas City Chiefs now, having lost the Dallas Cowboys in the middle game of Thanksgiving weekend, sitting at 6-6. Unfortunately, the Chiefs are not in the AFC North, where 6-6 is good enough to have a piece of first place. So we should, once again, as always, I always like to counsel how not everything happens in a week-to-week vacuum in the National Football League. But the way that teams play, you can take a look at how things might play out down the road over the final 5 games of the NFL campaign. Everybody has 5 games to go, with the exception of the 4 teams on a Week 14 bye, and that includes the Patriots. But the Steelers at 6-6 right now don't look like they have anything in the tank, which is not the way I'm sure Aaron Rodgers thought his season would go in Pittsburgh. But right now, I think his body is the embodiment of the Steelers to this point and their chances of moving forward. Rodgers emerging from this 26-7 home beatdown at the hands of a Bills team that one week looks great and the next week does not. Kind of like Brett Saberhagen's Cy Young seasons back in the 80s. One week looking great, next week looking not, and they looked like a 26-7 victor on Sunday. Rodgers with a cast on his left hand and a Band-Aid across the bridge of his nose, looking like he's trying to break into Kevin's home for Home Alone 3. And him getting knocked out of the game by Joey Bosa for a series in a sack, force, fumble return for a touchdown that completely flipped this game from a tight one-score contest into a washout. Wondering if the Steelers' season is anything but that. He's the embodiment of it. And that's the issue here, is what do the Steelers have, if not a stout defense that can stop the run? And instead, they gave up the most runs anybody who's been in that stadium, Heinz Field turned into Acrisure, have ever seen an opponent get. Ever. 249 rush yards. Were most by a road team at Pittsburgh since week 2 of 1975 when the Bills came in.
Whoa.
With OJ and everybody else in the old stadium at the Confluence. And right now there's a confluence of the Steelers, and it does not look like they are ready to even beat a Ravens team that hasn't gotten a touchdown pass from their quarterback in a month. Certainly when Tony Romo's talking about the Steelers' best offensive weapon being a 310-pound tight end. That's also a problem. So if you can't stop the run, you can't run it, and you also aren't threatening down the field, and your Hall of Fame, future Hall of Fame quarterback in his early 40s has a cast on his hand and a Band-Aid across his nose, how are you going to go anywhere from here? And Rodgers was asked about the offense not clicking again, and the instance being the moment that CBS's cameras caught him being distressed with tight end Jonnu Smith, one of the acquisitions that the Steelers made that was supposed to give another weapon to Aaron Rodgers to be better than 6-6 entering December. He goes one way. I mean, it's like that painting from Goodfellas. One receiver goes one way, the quarterback goes the other way, and the fans are saying, "What do you want from me?" We're booing. And Rodgers had this to say about that moment.
When there's film sessions, everybody shows up. And when I check to a route, you do the right route, you know? Like, John and I just weren't on the same page. I checked to his in-breaker, and he ran an out-breaker. John is a true professional, so I'm sure he's sick about that. But I threw a ball I thought was going to get hit by the wind, and it was 4 yards over Roman. So that's a throw. I got to make that throw. But we have our meetings every week. We have other opportunities outside of the facility, and look forward to seeing all the boys there.
So that's, a somewhat cryptic response there, whereas he's calling out Jonnu Smith, but then he doesn't call out Jonnu Smith, and if it's not Jonnu, then who else is it there? And then he raises his hand saying, I'm not perfect either, which does push back on the narrative that he's a selfish guy and throws people under the bus.
After throwing someone under the bus.
Well, and again, it's
always somebody else's fault.
Except he did say I overshot Roman Wilson. If you recall, Roman Wilson, the receiver, was open on the right side, and he airmailed it. And then that's the issue here is if the quarterback and the receivers they do have are not on the same page, and DK Metcalf is on the side of a football milk carton right now, and that isn't working out. And George Pickens, who they sent away because they couldn't countenance whatever he was meaning for the team in the locker room, is now one of the best receivers in the NFL, showing how it can be done with him successfully. This is definitely not the way the Steelers thought they'd be entering December. And then, of course, there's that now third rail subject matter about the coach. Fire Tomlin chants all over the place. And Tomlin was asked about that after the game.
What goes through your mind when the crowd chanting to fire you in your home stadium?
Man, I share their frustration tonight, man. We didn't do enough. And that's just the reality of it.
That is the reality of it. Rodgers was even asked a question that he knew where the answer would go, or at least where he thought the media was trying to get him. Hit it.
Do you see the flatness within the game and in practice as something that's not being done right from a coaching aspect or preparation aspect that's kind of framing you guys in the wrong way?
I know what you're trying to ask, and I'm not going to go down that road at all. I believe in the coaching staff. I believe in Mike Tomlin. That's why I came here. And players need to take accountability, myself included, and I will continue to. I got to play better. But there's 11 stars on offense, 11 on defense, plus with the personnel groupings that we run. And we got to have a Monday to Saturday that we can be really proud of, our best Monday to Saturday, and go out and play our best game and take control of the division.
Great answer, by the way. I have to give it up there. Problem is the Wilson that he's got is not named Garrett. He's not walking through the door, and Devontae Adams is catching touchdown passes for Matthew Stafford. We'll talk about the Rams losing in Carolina later on. That's the problem is who's walking through the door. Honestly, if I told you before the season Steelers would be 6-6 going into December and Tony Romo would be talking about their difference maker is Darnell Washington, and they need to work him in more. And the defense would be giving up the most yards a Steelers team has given up to an opponent since Gerald Ford was president. I'm telling you, and I hear from Steelers fans, I hear it, and they have 5 games to turn it around. That's the problem. Who's going to help turn it around? They do have both games against the Ravens left. If they can steel themselves, pun intended, and win those games and sweep them, they can win the division and go in with some momentum, but then what happens? Chargers come into town. Colts come into town. Texans come into town. Can you win that? Can you go on a run? And that's what the Steelers want to see. It's the fans want to see from the Steelers. I don't want to care about 500 anymore. We want to go into the playoffs. We want to win. And this doesn't look like a team that can do that right now. I got to shoot you straight up. I always do. And if it doesn't happen over the next 5 weeks, I am wondering if everybody goes back to their separate corners and decides that's where we're going to stay, in separate corners, and that the Steelers and the Tomlin administration are over. And I'm not laying this on the coach because I think the coach is as dynamite as they come, and I'm just wondering if he's sitting around thinking, this isn't working anymore for me. And who's going to be the quarterback here moving forward? And I saw what my counterpart across the state in Philadelphia, once upon a time synonymous with that team from Pennsylvania, what he's done in his 2.0. Let me go somewhere else and find me another quarterback in another situation and prove my worth and self, and I don't need to be here anymore either. You got to wonder if that's creeping into his head with a loss like this where they can't stop the run, they can't run it, they can't throw it. Their cold-blooded serial killer kicker, he doesn't even get a shot to do anything either. Nothing's working. And that's the way it was been looking on the road, like in SoFi against the Chargers a couple of Sunday nights ago. After they beat the Colts, at home is where they've been not supposedly, you just look at the stats doing better. You got to wonder if this is, in fact, the end of the road. But there's 5 games left. There are some winnable games left. The Ravens aren't beating the world. The problem for them is Joe Burrow's back. Good news for them, though, is the Joe that they took on was Flacco. Unfortunately for them is they split against him. So they couldn't even make hay against a Bengals team that didn't have Burrow. And the good news for the Steelers is the Joe they faced that they couldn't beat with Flacco. The Joe that the Ravens have to face twice, including on Thanksgiving night, is Burrow. So they don't have the Bengals. You know, they do have the Browns again. You know, so there's that. There's some winnable games. They can turn it around. Just doesn't look like they have the arsenal for it. Hey, you made it all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Check us out every single day streaming live on Disney Plus and the ESPN app 12 to 3 Eastern.